Perfect. Well, welcome back from the bus full of gin out there. Right, so this is one of these talks from me that is not really technical. And I will try to give a short overview of some of my observations in InfoSec for the past 16 years. And taking a step back, like, okay, when I started pen testing and we were all doing fun stuff in the late 90s, we thought, okay, we're going to go to our customer locations, we're going to test things, find the bugs, and fix them. Well, and guess what? Things are not really getting fixed, are they? We've tried several techniques and several measures and seen several things succeed and fail over the years. But the kind of state of security is pretty much still the same. So I started thinking, what is it going to take to defend an organization or an outfit over the next few years? My name is Saumil Shah. I can be reached on Twitter. I really don't follow LinkedIn. I don't know why I still have that LinkedIn thing up there. And I did not wear my typical presenter's red shirt this time. I brought it, but it's still in my bag. All right. So one thing I learned over my years of observation is that attacks succeed because the defense is reactive. This is the key theme I've seen over the years. A new attack comes on, everybody talks about it, the defense scrambles to detect it, to respond to it, and then prevent to it. In the late 90s, these cycles were fairly long. A new type of attack comes by, but there's a gap between the new attack and the defense. So the defense could catch up pretty well. The attackers were also sort of an esoteric group scattered all around. And a lot of time we just did it for the lols. And then until like some point of the way, like, shit just got real and it started becoming serious business. Over the years, attacks have evolved greatly. We've seen like clearly the most sophisticated attacks are, being used out there and in degrees of sophistication that the likes of me have never seen before. What has happened to the targets? What has happened to the stuff that we are out to defend? Targets have shifted over the years. They've gone kind of from a server-centric view to a identity-centric view, and now it's gone all the way down to our pockets. We're sort of a moving target, and we carry the device wherever we're going. We can be owned. There is if you look at the history of attacks, it's not like this is how technology has evolved, but this is where the soft spots have moved from. Like in the 90s when I started out, we were all attacking RPC bugs and Solaris TTDB and getting X Windows shells all over. And that got cut off by firewalls. So okay, we turned our attention towards web application. Now that's getting a little tough. So let's do browser exploits. Those are getting hard. Let's try to do, other sorts of attacks, application layers on the clients, on the phones, phishing attacks, and whatnot. And there's also been several other evolutionary factors that have kind of brought more and more users into focus. The targets themselves have changed. Like, why were servers important in the 90s? Well, because nobody else was connected 24/7. Today, you have like cellular data, social networks. Users, individuals are connected on the network 24/7 and in large numbers. So the attack surface, the fertility of the attack surface is no longer been the back end, no longer even been the front end, but it's been the users. And one thing to remember is that attacks follow the money. How do you monetize attacks today? I don't know how they're going to be monetized tomorrow, but we've seen everything from defacement to DDoS to ransomware, ID theft, fraudulent transactions, spear phishing. Tomorrow, probably it's going to be mind control over predictive machine learning. that Facebook and Google are trying to do. Who knows, like crashing self-driving cars, I have making batteries explode in mid-flight. I have no idea. But it seems like today the fashionable trend is breaches. Every week you hear like some X million or Y 100,000 records got breached or accounts got breached and they're dumped on some pastebin. Now this is happening almost like a daily basis to a point that, yeah, we're a little numb about it. We've sort of stopped paying attention to it. Yeah, when the Sony breach happened and all, that was like, oh, big news. But, I don't even know if the latest breaches are even getting as much attention as Sony did when it came out. Why am I talking about attacks and patterns and such? I've seen that what you're going to do next greatly depends upon what's been done before and what's not been done before. Over these years, we've also seen a lot of technologies trying to mitigate attacks. So we've seen everything from like firewalls to devices to say boxes with blinking lights like IDS, IPS, endpoint protection, hardening at the OS layer, sandboxing, making, now going down even all the way to the CPU layer. And we've had real strong innovation on the attack side as well. Like for every defense, there has been a bypass, there's been a circumvent, and sometimes there's been like, completely new avenues of attack over. Up until like 2 years ago, I was never even thinking about chip-level attacks until Rowhammer came around. And it's like, wow, we always assumed that memory is going to be preserving data integrity. Like, who the hell knew that by completely hammering rows of DRAM, you can have bit flips, and these bit flips could be controlled in order to change page table permissions and take over a kernel. And guess what? You can even do that from JavaScript now. So the world of attacks is continuously evolving. Does it mean that as defense, we're really not doing a good job? I don't think so. We are doing a good job as defense. It's just that the way we're defending, the whole practice of defense needs to change from being reactive to proactive. And this is a point I'm going to make throughout the talk. Last year, I was up here wearing my red shirt talking about Stegosploit. And this talk met with a lot of credits and a lot of controversies. But the technique was to take any browser exploit, encode it as pixels, and deliver it as a perfectly innocent picture. And the JavaScript will then decode the pixels, trigger the exploit, and deliver the exploit and blow it up. Why do you want to encode it on pictures? You want to bypass all sorts of detection, and you want to appear as innocent as possible. The decoding was possible because you can even embed JavaScript as a polyglot, and the same image can decode its own pixels and detonate. And I stepped back thinking about why are attacks like Stegosploit possible? Why are attacks like Rowhammer possible? This takes us into the minds of creative thinking. Whenever we think of, like this is going back to my thinking, if I'm writing an exploit and I hit a wall, saying, okay, shit, I met with the SLR. Like, how the hell do I get around it? Ask yourself what is allowed rather than what is prevented. Find those back alleys, those thermal ducts, those little gaps in the infrastructure that are there. Use them in ways that they were never intended to be used. And pretty soon, you can traverse through the infrastructure pretty much like Bruce Willis. This term was actually revealed in an architectural blog, and I loved this term called Nakatomi space. It is space where buildings reveal near infinite interiors capable of being traversed through all manner of non-architectural means. Stegosploit, you're trying to pack polyglot code within different markers of a JPEG file. You look at the file format, you analyze where the weakness is, you squeeze in whatever is available, and then you get an attack through. It is these type of techniques that are now being used in attacks today. We never thought of defending against these things because we never thought that these techniques or these alleyways or thermal ducts could be abused. But now that if we know it, would our defense be better? Going back 12 years ago, exploit development was very different. It was all like, we did it for the lols. A single exploit would take about a week of dev time to put it together. Once you got the exploit going, you go and talk about it at Black Hat and DEF CON and have parties and chill out with friends and brag. You get bragging rights. There wasn't really a huge market for offensive sales. But today, if you look at it, things have changed. This was a picture taken in Singapore, Black Hat 2003. 12 years later, the picture in Singapore again at SysCan. The only guy who was changed is Thomas Lim. He still has the habit of photobombing. But today, if you look at exploit development, the costs and the efforts have gone way high. You're looking at about a year worth of dev time for a very decent exploit to weaponize it, to make it solid. Shelf life, once these attacks are out, once they get detected, they're shut off pretty quickly, anywhere from 24 hours to maybe 10 days. You rarely see exploits like this coming out in the public domain. Like long time ago, you could pull them off PacketStorm or Technotronic, and you get like really good working exploits. Today, you don't. And the price, the cost of exploits has significantly risen. You have a huge market that is willing to buy these from you at incredible costs. So when we're looking at this, you think attackers have an upper hand. And as usual, whenever you want inspirational thoughts, you turn to the prophet of Infosec, who was speaking earlier this morning. And Haroon actually asked this question, saying, for a few hundred days, could you, what am I talking about? Completely losing my mind. I did 3 days of training and commute across the London tube, so I'm pretty worn out right now. But for a few $100,000, could you put together a team that would break in just about anywhere? This was prices of around 2010. And the responders, all of us said yes. The price that was quoted by Felix or me or Ivan was around $100,000 to $500,000. So yeah, give us $500,000 and we'll give you an elite team that could just do this all the time. But then we learned that the 3-letter and 4-letter agencies have shown us that we all suck at attack. They showed us the real way of doing attack. And while we always theorize that attacker tool chains are far more complex than the demos that we've seen so far, we now know what the actual capabilities are when an exploit or a technique gets weaponized across the entire world. And you can take on the internet or a population at scale. So looking at this, where's the defense? What's the defense been trying to do? One is, of course, the defense has been locked into this whole play catch-up game. And they're quickly realizing that by the time they catch up and get something out, not only do the tactics and techniques change, but entire strategies change. Entire spheres of target populations change. And what used to be relevant 6-7 months ago as an attack surface is kind of fallen behind. It's old news. The new stuff has moved to some completely new territory. So how fast can you keep on scrambling and catching up? So what do you do in the next case? You kind of say, okay, if you're getting so much money playing the offensive game in the black world, well, here, we'll try to give you some money and we'll buy these off you. The purpose of bug bounties was a very different one than what has come to stand today. If Katie's in the room, she's probably going to shoot me after the talk, but I'm still going to say it. So it started out great. The idea was, okay, we're now really concerned about protecting our software, say the vendors. We have a team, we have a process in place that we can do good bug fixing and rollouts. But if you guys have a bug, not only will we will give you free t-shirts and props and put you on our web page, we'll also give you money. We will crowdsource security quality assurance from the community at large. This is the spirit of bug bounties. But then somewhere it got into a price war. Say, okay, the cost of each bug, the payout is now going to escalate, zeros are being added, and the price went ridiculously high. So it became a money game, not like a community game where, say, you're incentivized to share your research and get payouts. Few mature vendors are doing it the right way. Like, for the longest time, Apple never did bug bounties. They just refused to play this game. And this year, they've started it with one intention. We're going to catch iOS bugs, sandbox bypasses or jailbreaks or like full remote tool chains. And if somebody has a possible jailbreak enabler code, they'll buy it. And then instead of you creating your own jailbreak and your own rogue app store, sell it to us and earn some money. But that's not the spirit with what bug bounties have become. It's sort of become a fashion thing. That, okay, if you're a mature defender, if you have an organization and you're not rolling out bug bounties, you're not doing something right. Now, what good will an organization do with bug bounties if they have to take about 6 to 7 months to fix a stupid cross-site scripting which says alert 1? I kid you not, some of our customers are like that. There's like, if we have to participate in conference calls between our customer and the organization that developed the software and shipped that shitty thing to them, and explain them saying, oh, hey, why is alert 1 such a problem? Well, then you have to educate them on cross-site scripting, which actually makes me sick to my stomach, because I hate cross-site scripting. And then they will do some dumb things like, filter on alert 1. So then we have to tell them, hey, look, alert 2 also works. And then they'll filter alert integers, and we'll say alert hello world works. And then, it's that nonsensical. Now, if this organization put out a bug bounty, and they're taking 6, 7 months or even weeks to fix a bug, how is it going to help them? It's completely not. They're just going to end up paying money, but they're going to remain in the same shitty state as they were to begin with. And if you look today, bug bounties try to fill a reactive need. Oh shit, these guys are getting a lot of money and they're being really aggressive, so hey, we're going to give them money and buy back their bugs. And today you see ridiculous statements like this, where an organization like Zerodium will offer $1 million for an iOS jailbreak. And this is coming under the hashtag of bug bounty. This is not Apple paying $1 million to own that iOS bug. It is an outfit that is going to buy the bug and sell it to whoever they wish. This is not bug bounty. This is just exploit sales, for that matter. And if the advertisement of bug acquisition is simply going by price payouts, that's not what bug bounties are. And my advice to my customers even today is, unless you get your process fixed, bug bounties are a game that you don't want to play. You just don't do it. If you get your process fixed, well, just do it right by the process. If somebody reports a bug, compliment them. If you're like that highly visible, hire them straight away. Just paying out to me doesn't really make sense. Now, the other area where security sort of started falling behind is whenever we're thinking in terms of defense, we're always thinking in terms of technology. But the real problem caused by security is not of technology. The problem is one of users. And what's happened to users, the sad fact is that for users, advanced technology is a little too advanced. You don't know how to fly an A380, In your maiden flight, you start clicking off all the ground proximity sensors and everything, the plane's going to spin up and run into a wall. I've asked several people whether this story is true or false, whether the picture is true. These images were leaked out of the Airbus facility in Toulouse, and a brand new 340 was totaled the day before it was even scheduled to fly. But yeah, if you do not know how to handle the technology in your hands or in your pockets, and this is talking about the average user, in some categories even I fall as an average user, then how do you expect to save users from this complex technology that they're using? I showed this slide to one of my banking customers. They're talking about credit card frauds. You give people a smartphone and a camera, and this is what they're going to do. They're going to tweet pictures of their own credit cards. Now, how do you save them? How do you save the organization? The sad fact is that whose responsibility is this? If a fraud does happen, who gets to clean up? Who gets left holding the sack? You can't tell the user. He'll say that, oh, you're supposed to protect me. And as Bruce Schneier says, that given a choice between a security alert and dancing pigs, the user is going to pick dancing pigs every time. So in this scenario, have we as defenders really addressed this issue of extremely sophisticated technology being put into the hands of users at a rapid pace where they really don't know how to deal with this technology or even use it in the right way? And as SP called it really well, that user hardening efforts have barely made any progress compared to software hardening efforts over the last years. This is a point that has to be seriously taken by an organization. Are we just going out with defending simply by technology, or are we really going to defend our users, hopefully from their own stupidity? Now, I'll tell you all sorts of wrong approaches to defense, and you've heard plenty of these over the years in events such as these. Now, one classic misconception today, and it's being shoved down every organization's throat, is this dreaded word called compliance. And there are new committees coming out with new shitloads of binders forcing all sorts of compliance down every organization's throats, such that a bank has to pander to the US regulators, the German regulators, the Singaporean regulators, and they can't even do their own banking business. There's an entire department just cranking out documents to satisfy the regulators. This is a picture taken in my own home city, where the law says that every rider of a two-wheeler has to wear a helmet. The law doesn't say anything about the rider, so what's going to happen in a crash? The lady has to be scraped off the road with a spatula. But is this person compliant? Are they law-abiding citizens? Sure, they are. Is the law going to save them? Hell no. Didn't save these people either, who are all PCI DSS compliant. So whenever we do a pen test engagement, the first thing I ask, and this is like such a horrible sales question to even throw to your vendor, to your potential customer, it's going to scare them away, is who are you more scared of? Attackers or auditors? If you're really scared about auditors and you're doing this security thing to get compliance, go run Nessus and, hey, wait, we'll run it for you free, take this report and go away. Don't pay us, don't come back. But I'm glad I'm not leading sales in my organization anymore. I've given that job to my business partner so that I can come and talk at 44Con. I always throw this statement at them that, attackers do not follow standards and certifications. So today, if you look at Infosec Defense, what has Infosec Defense turned into? It's turned into these things. It's turned into rules, signatures, and updates. And this is what has been the focus of every Infosec department in every organization. 24/7, they're doing rules, signatures, and updates. Most of the organizations are doing this. In fact, a vast majority. And the few that are getting innovative are now trying to throw machine learning at this whole process. in an attempt to solve everything. I have mixed feelings about machine learning. Speaking with Halvar Flack, and he and I were talking about, so my question is saying, is Google transforming into Skynet? And so he never really clearly answered that question, but he did tell me something interesting, that at the end of every decade, there is like a peak and trough. There's like this big euphoria on artificial intelligence and neural networks, and the technology peaks, something comes out of it, like, a chess playing machine or a Go playing machine or something that recognizes faces. The technology does ebb down. But machine learning, during those years, machine learning is viewed as the greatest panacea that can do everything. A few good things come out of it, but a lot of things, and a vast majority of things, just fall off the wall. We are in one of those crest phases, and I'm kind of wondering what's going to stick, and by the end of 2018 or 19, how many startups, how many unicorns would have, crumbled and been fried. And then, of course, you have defenders making fantastic claims, saying, all right, Cylance stops 99% of malware attacks before they happen. Well, brilliant. Ever heard of what the other 1% are doing? It's the other 1% of the malware that is actually owning the entire planet. You're focusing, I'm sure these Occupy guys will probably be gut-wrenched that I'm using their slides for this purpose. But it's true, it is, in humanity, I don't know who matters. I am the 99%, but in malware, it is a 1% malware that's actually owning the entire planet. And what are you going to do about this? This 1% will happen again and again and again and again, and I've seen this happen. I mean, today, if you look at Windows or even Linux, from an Intel standpoint, things have become pretty hard. Like, truth be told, it takes a lot of effort to own a Windows box today. But on the other platform that is burgeoning up, on IoT and devices, where you have a lot of MIPS and ARM and embedded Linux, you don't have a home router implementing SE Linux. Because D-Link built that router. I did a D-Link exploit in class yesterday with a full ROP chain on ARM and everything. Got a shell. But it was a standard BusyBox device with a Linux kernel 2.6, mind you. It's an old kernel. No security features enabled except the default data execution prevention and ASLR, like randomization of process space. Now, device manufacturers are going to build devices to ship them out as fast as possible. They're going to get the software done by somebody else who doesn't really care. They're just getting paid to do the software. They're going to put the cheapest possible solution in place, push it out, and this will not get updated forever. This whole space is growing. And I'm pretty certain the weight of the internet is going to shift away from the desktops into these device-enabled spaces. I mean, there's going to be servers on one end, and there's going to be all these other little things and PCs somewhere in the middle. And that's going to be the new attack surface. And do we have strategies to think about those and tackle those? On a grand scale, no. A few of us are having some thoughts about it and putting solutions out there. But it's going to, the same cycle from 1999 to 2012 is going to probably repeat itself from 2019 to 2032 or whatever it is. The same 11-year cycle keeps coming back. The 11-year is a phrase that I learned in school in Sanskrit class, that there was a verse which said that everything that you build up and any empire that gets built up in 11 years kind of gets destroyed or reset. We're pretty much at the end of one 11-year cycle now as I see it. Another is going to begin. So as far as the defense stuff goes, we have good things in place, but our existing strategies do not meet attacker tactics. Now, if you think of defense, how has defense evolved from 1999 to present day? When I first started out, the first layer of defense was firewalls. Marcus Raynham was just coming out with firewalls, and there were a few good firewall providers out there. There's Checkpoint and Gauntlet and selling multi-homed boxes which were doing good packet filtering and firewalls. This was pretty much an allow and deny rule at the network layer, at TCP/IP layer 3 and 4. And firewalls did a pretty good job of keeping unauthorized network access away. But then the focus changed to applications. So we have this one perimeter thing built up, then everybody scrambled to fortify applications. So dumb thing called web app firewalls got invented. So another ring comes inside the perimeter ring. Then endpoint security, another ring like DLP, CM. We've all these sort of all these acronyms that are being thrown around, creating one ring within another. The rings have no coordination with the outer or inner rings. There's no unified strategy in place. And an organization that has survived over these decades is left with a lot of rings, and somehow they have to have these people to coordinate things and scramble and make everything work. There's no inside out, there's no central thought process that leads the defense strategy for any given organization. It's all cobbled together. Now, whenever we do a pen test, we get like all these ridiculous testing scenarios. Like pen tests are supposed to be a measure of reality, but then if you're testing unrealistic scenarios, like what good is a pen test going to do? And this is an example I'm using to kind of illustrate that a lot of money is being spent on so-called defense practices. When you remove the layer of reality, this money doesn't make any sense at all. So we get told for this, oh, hey, wait, hold off the pen test because we have a new release. Don't test on production. Like, wow, great. Don't perform intrusive testing. Like, hey, what? I thought penetration testing was intrusive. And then all these X, Y, and Z are out of scope, test during off-peak hours. So basically, do all the testing with all these restrictions until you give us a clean bill of health. And then we're going to go and dance away with it and tell the regulators we are secure. And then they get owned, so the CISO gets fired. Some Mandiant, Silence, whoever comes in, cleans up the mess. And here we go again. New leadership, it's going to be great. There's no way to live. We have to make a switch. We have to change this whole approach from reactive to proactive. And what I want to present is my rough napkin sketch for the blueprint of security architecture for tomorrow. Everything has to be intelligence driven. I worked on this closely with one of our customers in the US. They're a bank, and they've implemented this over the past 3 years, and the results have been fantastic. So as a bank, they had the task of securing their entire application portfolio. They have several applications, they have several banks, and several acquisitions over the period of years. They started building a security data warehouse about 5 years ago. With a one simple thing, we're going to buy some computers and create a Hadoop cluster, and we're going to dump every goddamn packet into it, and we're going to keep it. We know we can't process everything right now, but if we have historic data, we will be able to analyze what has happened in the past, correlate it, and kind of make strategies or make plans for what's going to happen and work on defending against these type of things. So they plugged in everything they could, from packet captures to HTTP logs to writing custom HTTP web server filters to get full transactional traffic, shim applications, get data from the SQL layer. Every transaction from 2013 to present day that has hit their perimeter is recorded in the security data warehouse. The data is about crawling up to just under 3 petabytes right now. And they've got all these ETL jobs and fancy statistical modeling things written in R to kind of look at patterns and analyze issues. And with this, now they're building libraries and APIs into all their applications to act upon the analysis generated by these models. So with this, they've already been able to save millions in fraud. The system and the department kind of pays for itself. The one thing to keep in mind is this was entirely an in-house development effort with no third-party component because nobody was selling such a system. They had to home grow it using technology that's already out there, but customize it very specifically to their applications, their needs, and their purposes. How many people does it take to run this team? 3 people. 3 of them built it, 3 of them are running it, and now they actually have an official contract given to Dell for supplying a little bit of reliable hardware. That's the only external dependency they have. The rest of it they had cobbled together from regular PCs that they went and bought off price. So if you look at it and you're an organization and you really want to defend your own organization, keep in mind that as an organization, we already have all the information needed to defend this organization. External threat intelligence, external feeds, they only contribute a small fraction, but the real knowledge you need to defend yourself must come from within your own organization. Behavior patterns, transaction patterns, user requirements, use patterns, technology, change of technology, like when the bank already noticed that a lot more users are using mobile banking than they're using web-based banking anymore. So why spend money in trying to upgrade web banking, instead spend that money in trying to upgrade mobile banking? And if you want to try and break something on the web-based banking, you can go ahead and do that. Like they introduced that, okay, you have to have a latest version of Firefox, and if your browser has a Firefox or Chrome or whatever, and if your browser has a Flash plugin, we will not load internet banking onto your application. If they can say that today, and yeah, 30% of their users will complain, but they know that they'll be able to write this out. Rather than be scared and saying, oh, what if we break this, then everything will break, and we have to be able to serve the shittiest of user who is using IE6. So unless you know your user base and the technology that's coming in, you cannot take intelligent decisions, and you cannot take smart strategic decisions to provide the defense. You're then just reacting, and that's no good. From a tester standpoint, how do you enable proactive security testing? And this kind of leads me towards the last few statements I will make for this talk, is I have put together some 7 axioms of security. And while I don't have the technology to deliver these axioms, that is an open space to work upon. Haroon is working upon one of the statements that I've made in this thing. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. So here we go. Number 1, collect everything. There is no greater asset for defense than historic data of your own organization. And historic data cannot be acquired straight away. You can't hit the rewind button and grab everything from back there. If you start now, in a few months, you'll have enough historic data to make sense of some activity patterns. But if you've not looked at your activity patterns at all and you're just looking at a snapshot in time, you cannot make intelligent security decisions. You have no insight into things. So on the hazard of saying, what do we collect, what do we abandon? Moore's law. Today it's 2016. Like after 2007, the cost of owning a supercomputer, any small organization can own computing power of fantastic proportions. Like today, you can, home LAN can have a few dozen terabytes of data, if not almost reaching up to 100 terabytes. It's not unthinkable to own such storage and processor capability. So collect everything. Just keep it. If Google doesn't delete a single byte, why should you? Second axiom. If you can't measure something, you can't use it. Everything you do has to be measurable. You have to be able to quantify it, have to be able to justify it. If it's just guesswork, and this is something I hate about pen testing reports, is like say, oh, is this a high, medium, or low finding? Like, screw that, it's a finding. I don't care if it's high, medium, or low, it's just bullshit colors that you draw on a report. The question is, do you want to do something about it or not? Here it is, it's a finding, take it. I don't know how it's going to, really negatively impact you, but this stuff shouldn't be there on your system. If the right person looks at it, they're probably going to fix it in 2 days. So if it's fixable, fix it. Why are you bothered about colors? So it's a binary thing. Finding equals true. Measure it, fix it, make finding equals false, go on with it. Secondly, when you test, if you wish to test, you better test like an attacker. Otherwise, don't test. Measure. If you're really good at measuring, you may not need to test. But if you do test it like somebody is really, really trying to own it. And there must have been at least 100 presentations in this 1 year that talk about the merits of red team testing, so I'm not going to do that. The third area that most organizations have ignored, they've only looked at technology, applications, transactions, but they've ignored users. And I'm talking with one of our customers, like, why don't you start user ratings? Internal ratings. If you're a bank and you've got, if you're a bank in India, you've got a few million customers connecting to you, create a score pattern for all of these users. Are they good citizens? Are they bad citizens? Now, this is all, not from a humanity standpoint of view, it's from a network. So don't quote me on Twitter saying, I said this citizen comes from a shitty neighborhood. It's a digital neighborhood, mind you. So is this citizen coming from an IE6 browser? And they're in a rotten neighborhood. They're really coming from a very, very pathetic area. You first try and put ratings. Do you see a user updating their browser regularly? Oh, then they have good habits. Do you see a user, how many users have actually chosen long passwords on their own volition? Can you measure it? Can you act upon this information? Can you track what your users are doing and segregate the proactive ones from the reactive ones? Your goal as an organization should be to move the slider lower and lower. Can we get more and more users to follow good security practices over a period of time? The moment you start analyzing this thing, collecting this information, and building techniques around this, build your messaging, go talk to your marketing department guys and say, hey, look, we need to roll this little bit of information out. A few users educated over a period of time will really, really pay great benefits. Have your technology pretty safe. The fourth one, this is what Haroon's working on, set booby traps. I used to do this years ago when I was an admin in an educational institute in India. This was like, we're talking about the years of Slackware Linux 1, where I installed it from a tape drive. Don't ever install Linux from tape. It's a terrible exercise. But I did. And we had a little Linux server which was used for the students and faculty. And I created a user account where I literally wrote down a long password on a piece of paper, typed it in twice, tore up the piece of paper, and forgot it. So yes, the account is there. Even I can't get in. My job daily was to come and check whether there was any activity recorded against this account. So the existence of this account is unknown. The shell was a custom C program that would send me an email, and then I later realized that I had a buffer overflow in there. Like you could stack overflow the damn thing. My own making. I introduced a vulnerability in that server. But anyway, so that job was that if somebody does try to log in or even succeeds, then I come to know about it. So this is a little booby trap, a little hair left on the edge of your door frame to see if somebody's walked in and something suspicious is going on. This can be done in applications and networks at a large scale. Why don't use them? You come to know if something strange is going on. Somebody is casing your joint, somebody is jiggling your locks, somebody is looking at your cameras. All this stuff you come to know. Fifth one, sixth one, sorry, I think I lost count. What was it? Number 1 is collect everything. I should have numbered them. Can't measure, can't use. 3 is red team. 4th is user ratings. 5th is booby traps. Yes, 6th one. Analysis decides actions. No unilateral action allowed. Measure it, analyze it, and only then act upon it. It'll take a while to get used to this regimen, but if you follow this strictly, they let all analysis decide for future actions, then you've got a very good strategy-backed security practice going. And last but not the least, the most important of them all, better get buy-in from the top. If your top level is not buying into InfoSec, forget it. Fighting a losing battle, just do the bare minimum, earn your salary, do compliance reports, and go home and watch Halt and Catch Fire. It's a great show, by the way. So, last slide. If you go back to your organization, one question that you want to answer, if you want to find out whether you're doing a good job or not, is this one question. Is your InfoSec team doing something creative every day? If you have an answer as yes, great, you're on the right path. If you're only doing rule signatures and updates, well, work on it till you can answer yes to this question. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and attention. We have a few minutes for questions and answers. And after that, there's a bus full of gin waiting outside. Thank you very much.